give me a heads up. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Today we're going to present about our beach cleanup protocol for the collection of micro debris and especially microplastics. And this is our team. I'm Carol Maione. I'm a PhD candidate at the Polytechnic University of Milan, also working as a research fellow at the Metabolism of Cities Living Lab, which at San Diego State University, which is one of the partners of today's event. And I work mainly on plastic pollution, how to monitor pollution flows into the environment, and the role of enabling technology in the enhancement of a circular economy of plastics. Next, we have Preston Burste, which is also a master's student in urban planning, policy, and design at the Polytechnic University of Milan, and is really into nature and outdoor activities, and also in environmental education. Next, we have Dr. Domenico Vito. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Carol. I'm Domenico Vito, and I work in European project in Italy, but I'm also part of the Metabolism of Cities Living Lab at the University of San Diego. I'm a PhD bioengineer working mainly on data analysis and relationship between the environment and health. So I'll give the floor to my colleague, Gabriela Fernandez.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Gabriela Fernandez. I'm an adjunct faculty in the Department of Geography, principal investigator in the Center for Human Dynamics in the Mobile Age, and director of the Metabolism of Cities Living Lab. I'm also serve as a UNEP delegate of the major group for children and youth, where we focus on microplastics and marine litter. Currently, my research focuses on localizing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals in Southern California, in Baja California, Mexico region, working closely with vulnerable communities within San Diego and Imperial County. Thank you.
So for today's event, we're going to address the marine litter and especially plastic pollution and the role of plastic once it reaches the marine environment. So for this, when we talk about plastic pollution, we're going to analyze the different type of plastic flows that enter the environment. And it's been estimated that around 80% of this plastic comes from land-based sources. And when we talk about plastic, there's different, issues that we're looking at. In particular, we're looking at different sectors which can act as major contributor of plastic pollution, such as tourism, which has introduced new types of waste materials, such as plastic bottle, the construction sector, residential household, living nearby the beach area, and also fishing, which is both a land-based source, but also a sea-based source of plastic pollution. In particular, for today's event, we're going to look at different habitats and how to sample these habitats in order to look for plastic pollution. In this case, we're going to look at the beach environment, so the area along or near the beach, the open sea, the marine biota, and how this is affected by plastic, the urban areas and how that contributes to plastic pollution. And the urban areas is a very rich environment because it can include a domestic household, but also road and major urban infrastructure, travel and restoration facilities such as tourism, inland waters such as rivers and wastewater outflows that can bring plastic from the urban landscape to the marine environment, and finally vegetation, which is located around the beach. So more specifically, we're now looking into different monitoring systems. So in general, when we talk about plastic pollution monitoring, we talk about three different level of monitoring. The first one is the macro level monitoring, which is mainly used to tackle plastic pollution as a transboundary issue. And here you can find an example of a project we've been working on in the area of Southern California and Baja California, looking at the transboundary plastic across the US and Mexico coastline. So when we look at plastic from a macro level point of view, There's different like issues that we're trying to tackle, such as the limited traceability associated with different like system for material and pollution monitoring and accounting, the different policy and measure to allocate resources and to keep material flow accountable, such as like the differences in this system between like the United States and Mexico, the lack of information exchange across border, including the information on material flows and pollution, and the uneven use and communication of data analytics. In the macro level like monitoring survey, we have like 3 main questions that we deal with, which are: what are the magnitude, location, and temporal variability of plastic accumulation? What are the composition, the spatiotemporal distribution, and the abundance of plastic accumulation? And finally, what are the main physical and anthropogenic like processes influencing the transport and accumulation of plastics? The objective for this like monitoring is to provide real-time data or nearly real-time data acquisition, wide area coverage, and high spatial resolution, and also to provide a consistent global harmonized system for assessing plastic particles in transboundary waters. As you can see here, for the monitoring methodology, we use like a combination of like remote sensing techniques, such as like space-based observation of the magnitude, spatiotemporal distribution, and accumulation of marine plastic pollution, the spectrometric analysis of observed pollution, also combined with like proximity sensing, using sensor and drones to track like plastic. And in terms of like the type of data that you can collect using this monitoring system, it includes satellite imagery of plastic pollution and aerial photos of pollution. Second, we have the meso-level monitoring, which is the main focus of today's presentation, which is used for the survey of like macroplastics on tourism beaches. This is an example of like a monitoring expedition that was like conducted in 2018 in Zanzibar, Tanzania, and the open issue that were like tackled through this expedition were like the paucity of data on sources and amount of marine plastic pollution and the uncertainty about sources and pathway of marine pollution. In terms of like the survey question that we can answer through like meso-level monitoring, we can have: what are the areas where litter is most prevalent? How much litter occurs in the selected study site? What is the litter composition, including wet, so organic, waste, recyclable, such as like plastic, paper, non-recyclable? What are the principal like types of material found, such as like plastic, paper, metal, and so on? What are the principal litter items? Does the amount of litter vary across different transects? And what are the possible like variables that affect the input of litter at sea? In terms of like objective tackles for this like level of monitoring, we can capture the spatiotemporal variability of beach and coastal pollution over time, so we can even repeat the measurement over like several days, and we can provide a more accessible litter assessment using basic and cost-effective tools such as like logbook, pencil, measuring tapes, litter bag, and buckets. So you can see here a small an overview of like one like beach survey. And the methodology that was used is in situ assessment and quantification of like plastic litter via litter counting, including visual inspection of the debris, and litter separation by material type and debris classification. In terms of like collected data, we collected data on the marine litter amount by count and weight, the marine litter density, photographic evidence, and information on sampling conditions such as location, GPS coordinate, time, and procedure. Finally, we move on to the micro level of monitoring, and this is used mainly like to track the specific impact of plastic and specifically microplastics on marine like species, such as like ingestion like mechanism. And this is an example of a survey that was conducted in the Detroit River, Michigan, in the United States in 2019. The issue tackled for this survey were the limited data on ecological and biological impacts of plastic on native species, the uncertainty about the translocation of microplastic across different like trophic levels. The specific like survey questions that this monitoring is trying to answer are: what are the abundance, distribution, and variability of microplastics? What is the incident of encounter between microplastics and native species, including fish, bird, bivalves, crustaceans, and so on? And how does plastic pollution affect the substances of these like species? In terms of objectives, we aim to quantify the smaller fragments such as like microplastics and nanoplastic, which are not visible through the other monitoring system that we already discussed. Assess the specific impact of plastic pollution, such as the incident of encounter between like plastic particles and marine organisms, including biological effect, ecological effect, changes in feeding behavior, and translocation across trophic levels. Finally, you can see here an overview of like some sampled microplastics. There's different like methodology that can be done separately or even like combined to have a more comprehensive like view of like the incidence of microplastics, including the sampling of water, the sampling of short sediments containing plastic particles, and sampling of like marine organisms such as fish, birds, bivalves, and crustaceans. In terms of like collected data, we could count the number and type such as beads, fibers, fragments, films, and foam of plastic debris, the particle size, and the dominant light particle color, which can suggest like some changes in the feeding behavior of this species. But as mentioned before, today's presentation is mainly going to tackle the meso-level scale. So through the assessment of macro debris in beach area. And you can find here how we came to work on this process. So I must mention first that this process is conducted in collaboration with a local partner, which is like Casa Congo, and is like located on the beach of El Astillero in Nicaragua. And also we work with two international like partners, which are like Race for Ocean. And our project has been like awarded the title of like Race for Ocean Champion. And also like Unleash Lab, which is like a main institution working on the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations with a main focus on SDG 14, life below water. So just to give you an overview of like today's work, so we started with the definition of the plastic problem in our area of like interest. So what types of plastic are common in the location? And we found that single-use plastics and like fishing gear were the most like prevalent. Where does plastic come from? And we estimated different sources such as residential household and fishing industry as most, because like the area where we like running this cleanup is like fishing village. And in a smaller part also like coming from tourism, since we have some like major like tourism like attraction like in the nearby area. In terms of like the pathway that plastic can like fall in order to reach the sea, we have like abandonment of plastic from beach users, littering, insufficient like sweeping or cleaning operation on the coastline, proximity of like waste generating sectors, mismanagement of like different like plastic waste, including like fishing gears, and also plastic coming like from sea-based sources. Who are the actors like involved in plastic pollution? And we found we have different types of actors, such as like local communities, which can also like act as polluters, but also being affected by plastic, like persisting in the environment, the impact of tourism, the impact of like fishing as a main generator of plastic, like sea-based and land-based plastics, and also the marine and beach ecosystem as a whole. For today's event, we're trying to tackle like 3 different types of like stakeholders. We have like the volunteers at Casa Congo, including also like local and international youth and students, children, and in a smaller part also like tourists and beach visitors. Today's event is going to combine different types of activities. We have an initial like awareness to educate children and like volunteers of Casa Congo like about like the impact of plastic pollution on the marine environment and what are some like best practices to avoid plastic like entering the marine environment. We also have some sport activities such as like a surf competition. And finally, we have a moment in which we analyze all the trash and trying to like do a like waste characterization in which we understand what are the main types of like trash and the main items found. This is like an overview of the area. Here is Casa Congo, which is located like it has direct access to the beach, and we're having like it's going to be a total of like 4 transects, and these transects are going to be located partially like nearby the shoreline, some like more closer to the road and like the urban area, just to understand which transect will be more polluted by waste. Next, we had to define like the different activities and what are the potential like stakeholders and volunteers included in the event. And as you can see, we have a whole variety of like participants, including like Casa Congo, the municipality that gave us like access to like different facility, the Astillero like surfing club. We have like, we also participate as like a representative of the UNEP group, working group of marine litter and microplastics, and finally like local fishermen and like local groups. In terms of like the event, is going to like include different activities. So we're going to start with the meetup of the different like participants that are going like to run like the beach cleanup. Then an initial like moment of like awareness on like plastic pollution and its impact. Then we're going to have the actual cleanup, which is going to be followed by lunch and surf competition and like waste litter analysis. And finally, we're having like the announcement of the winner and the final remarks. And finally, just to conclude, like an overview of like the expected impact of today's event. So we have like a combination of different types of activities, including awareness, sport, and also a moment in which like we collect data. And we really want like this moment to be part of a broader like citizen science project in which we involve like participants to collect waste, and like we can use that waste to establish like to demonstrate like the beach metabolism and understand like the different sources and pathway of plastic pollution. As for partners on site are like the Brigata Ecologica, which is like part of the conservation program in Casa Congo. They have an initial, they already started this program like cleanup. So they have like initial knowledge, and we expect kids to be very like, you know, active in this event. And this project aims to be a long-time collaboration. So it's not just like one daily event, but we aim to like repeat this operation and also like, let's say, compare pollution amounts over time. Thank you. I hand it over to you, Domenico.